More than a dozen dead as a result of Hurricane Irma. Our top story in Caribbean Newsline for Thursday, September 7. From the CMC News Center in Bridgetown, I'm Sharon Coward. Good evening. The death toll from Hurricane Irma, which has maintained Category 5 strength for 3 days, rose again Thursday as the monster system barreled through the Caribbean. The latest 3 fatalities were recorded as Irma battered Puerto Rico on Thursday afternoon. Earlier, 8 others were reported killed in French St. Martin, as well as 1 person in Anguilla and an infant in Barbuda. A state of emergency has been declared in Barbuda, where Prime Minister Gaston Brown reported almost total devastation and said the island was barely inhabitable. Significant damage has also been reported in the British Virgin Islands, where infrastructure, homes, businesses, and supermarkets have been devastated. And a state of emergency and a public health emergency have been declared in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where there has been extensive damage as well. The French overseas island territories of St. Martin and St. Barthélemy are also counting heavy losses. As we hear in this report from our partners at France Caribe, there is destruction everywhere that residents turn.
Saint-Martin, Saint-Barthélemy, Desolation Islands, Irma crossing, Category 5 hurricane has devastated everything. The buildings have trembled against winds up to 350 kilometers. The prefecture has been partly destroyed. The fire station flooded. According to an initial assessment, 6 dead are to be deplored. The inhabitants lived a real hell. Here are the latest images that have just come to us. In Saint-Martin, the postcard landscape has given way to a landscape of desolation. Here is what remains of the port and the airport of Juliana. The most powerful hurricane Irma ever seen in the area has spared nothing in its passage. Everywhere the water has risen several meters, and wind gusts sometimes exceeding 300 kilometers have shattered the buildings. The roof of the prefecture didn't resist, and the site of these hotels disemboweled without comment. Joined by the telephone, the inhabitant of Marugot tell us this morning of nightmare. I no longer recognize the marina. It's really destroyed. Everything has been shelved. Cars are in bulk everywhere. The sea has come under the road. It's horrible. We are logged. Everything is closed. There, for the moment, is the eye of the cyclone, and we can look out of the window, but otherwise we cannot. The winds are so violent that even through the window it screams so much that we can't look. At the moment, there is nothing, no water, no electricity. We made water reserves. We had prepared for the worst, and for the moment we are cut off from the world. There is no radio anymore. There is nothing happening. There are just telephones and then internet, but radio, television, water, electricity, we no longer have anything. Well, we have water infiltrations by the roof, but otherwise it's gas, because we are in height, so it's okay for us. Even the scenes of devastation at Saint-Barthélemy, the favorite islands of billionaires, is nothing but a heap of mud and debris. The winds have been fierce, as this image of surveillance cameras testify. Stores, shop, vehicles, the damage are considerable. Everything is to be rebuilt. There are still at least 6 deaths, according to the latest reports, which could still increase. And while the 2 islands are just beginning to invent the losses, Irma continues its devastating race. Puerto Rico and Dominican Republic are on maximum alert, and the Bahamas and Florida coast are also preparing for the worst.
Hurricane Irma also left its mark on Anguilla. We are joined live on the phone by Keith Stone-Greaves from the British Overseas Territory. Good evening, Mr. Greaves.
A very good evening to you from Anguilla.
Can you give us details on the extent of the damage caused by Irma?
Well, the damage has been very extensive. In fact, today work continues. We're into the recovery mode with some help from a British naval vessel. Officers from that particular vessel have come in to assist with our hospital. The lone hospital on the island has been severely impacted, and hence the officers were providing some help. We've lost, according to one of our power company officials, about 70% of the poles on the island, and that certainly has created quite an impact for the residents. Folks have just been going around and having a look at the damage. As I said, it's been very extensive. The housing stock, very strong. Concrete structures, but a number of doors and windows were lost, and there's been quite a bit of water damage. In addition, of course, to the wind damage, quite a bit of water damage. So folks have been going around and trying to get the bits and pieces together. They're also mindful of the impending Hurricane Jose. They're very concerned about that and the possible effects that may have, because it's due to come into our region over the weekend.
What is the state of telecommunications on the island? The state of food and water?
Water there's still some water. Some of the grocery stores, all the grocery stores have been impacted, but there are one or two who've been able to open their doors today. So folks have been stocking up on water and other grocery items. So we still have some water, but as the time wears on, there might be some need for some of that. And of course, our nearest neighbor, St. Martin, has been severely impacted as well. So that will have some effect on the food supply coming in here. The Emergency Operations Center has been up and going. The governor and the chief minister have also put out messages appealing for help from the UK government and other friendly governments and CARICOM states as well, who've not been impacted.
Has any dollar figure, I know it's early days yet, but has any dollar figure or estimate been put on the damage and the cost of recovery?
Not as yet. In fact, the folks who do the assessment, the damage assessment people, they have been out in the field today. Some of them have been out, and more will go out tomorrow, but nothing yet on the damage. And even as we speak, we can hear the helicopter from the British naval vessel just passing over. So they've been quite busy all day, but nothing in terms of a dollar figure on any estimates as it relates to the damage at this moment. But the assessments are now being done.
Mr. Graves, thank you very much. And as you mentioned, Jose seems to be on track to the Northern Caribbean. Do stay safe.
Thank you so very much.
Meantime, relief is on the way for affected islands. The British government has announced plans to send a military vessel to assist. In a statement to Parliament, Junior Foreign Minister Alan Duncan said a military vessel would be sent to the region and $15.7 million in aid has been assigned. He added that charter flights tasked with delivering additional supplies also stand ready. Foreign Minister Boris Johnson added that the UK will conduct an urgent assessment of the further needs of communities in the British Virgin Islands and Anguilla to see what more can be done in terms of financial and humanitarian assistance. And the Trinidad and Tobago government has announced plans to send a helicopter and crew to Antigua and Barbuda for a week to directly contribute to the provision of relief and aid for Barbuda. Meantime, other Caribbean islands remain in Irma's path. The extremely dangerous hurricane was very near the Turks and Caicos Islands at 5 p.m. and heading for the Bahamas. Maximum sustained winds dipped slightly to 175 miles per hour, but Irma is still a Category 5 hurricane. At 5 p.m., it was located about 40 miles south of Grand Turk Island and about 135 miles east of Great Inagua Island and moving towards the west-northwest at 16 miles per hour. On the forecast track, the eye of Irma should continue to move between Hispaniola and the Turks and Caicos Islands Friday evening. The core of the hurricane is then expected to move between the north coast of Cuba and the Bahamas during the next day or two. Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, SIDEMA, Ronald Jackson, is worried about how Haiti, in particular, will cope.
So whilst the eye is staying well north of Hispaniola, because of the size of the system and because of the terrain and the situation in Haiti, we are anticipating that there may be challenges in the northern sections of Haiti. In that regard, Haiti did in fact conduct evacuation exercises of some of their vulnerable areas. They're looking at 10 departments in the northern section. They have been able to mobilize resources to 3 of the most vulnerable of those 10 departments. They have made some allocation of about $32,000 available to jumpstart emergency relief activities in these particular departments should Hurricane Irma impact.
Jackson added that the TCI and the Bahamas are also of concern, and SEDEMA is on standby.
We expect that there will be extensive flooding conditions in the Turks and Caicos Islands, potentially with entire areas being covered, making it perhaps even difficult to differentiate the sea from the land masses in low-lying areas. That's a possibility. And of course, certainly with the rainfall, there could also be further flooding in the areas in TCI. With the Bahamas, they indicated that they completed the evacuation of somewhere between 1,000 to 1,200 persons from Greater Nagua, and those persons are now located or situated in New Providence. But as you would note from the forecast, New Providence itself is also likely to be in the northeast quadrant of the storm, and so may face some of the devastating winds, even if the eye does not pass directly over New Providence. So what that means is that certainly for the regional response, TCI and Bahamas have already asked the SEDEMA mechanism to stand ready to provide support to both islands.
Coming up in Caribbean Newsline, a potential mandatory evacuation as another major hurricane heads down Irma's path with the Leeward Islands in its sights. We'll be right back.
I want to give the audience a context in which we are carrying on this conversation, to say that the trading relations with Britain and by extension Europe are very important within a particular context. So we're dependent on trade with everybody, right? But Britain is a particular kind of relationship. Expand on that a little bit for the audience.
Adopting a bunny is a big responsibility. Rabbits need special food and care.
People come in and wanting to buy a bunny for their child. That's not the reason to buy a bunny. It's got to be a family commitment, something that's well thought out by the whole family, and then the parents really have to be the sole caretaker. I mean, the children can help too, but they shouldn't depend on the children to take care of the bunny, and a lot of times that's the case.
The government of Dominica and Discover Dominica Authority welcomes you to the most unique Caribbean island, Dominica. Bursting with life, with energy, Dominica enraptures you in the vibrancy of the 20th edition of the World Creole Music Festival, October 27th, 28th, and 29th. Windsor Park Sports Stadium, Roseau, Dominica. Featuring Machel Montano, Sweet Mickey, Movado, Kalasha, Bungie and Fayan, Class, Kai, Zuko Stars, Roman Virgo, Itana, Issa Banton, Triple K International, Yemi Holiday, Mizikano All Stars, Breathe, Swinging Stars, and more. Be part of the spectacle. This is the World Creole Music Festival, held in the nature island of the world, Dominica. Season tickets US $125 or $325 EC. Nightly tickets US $48 or $120 EC. Visit DominicaFestivals.com, where you will yearn for more. Say Mizikano.
Dominica.
Residents of the hurricane-ravaged Barbuda are being urged to evacuate ahead of the impending arrival of Jose, the third major hurricane of the Atlantic season. And although Prime Minister Gaston Brown is currently asking for people to comply, he's not ruling out a mandatory evacuation. Following a late-night cabinet meeting, he announced on Thursday that the government was declaring Barbuda a disaster zone. He said if Jose is going to be a threat to Barbuda, people will have to leave.
You know that we are threatened now potentially by yet another storm, Hurricane Jose. And if that is the case and it's coming our way, then clearly we will have to evacuate the residents of Barbuda. In fact, I'm of the view that as it stands now, that Barbuda is barely habitable. And if we have yet another storm coming in a matter of days, we will have to make special arrangements to evacuate all Barbudans and bring them over here until we can restore some level of normalcy.
And the latest on Hurricane Jose, it's now packing maximum sustained winds near 120 miles per hour, but forecasters say it could intensify even before it reaches the northern Leeward Islands. A hurricane watch has been issued for Antigua and Barbuda, and a tropical storm watch is in place for Anguilla, Montserrat, St. Kitts and Nevis, Saba and St. Eustatius. At 5 p.m., Jose was about 590 miles east of the Lesser Antilles and moving towards the west-northwest at 18 miles per hour. It is expected to continue on this path with a slight decrease in forward speed during the next couple of days, and strengthening is possible over the next day to day and a half. The Category 3 hurricane is expected to produce total rain accumulations of 2 to 6 inches in the Leeward Islands from Dominica to Anguilla. Isolated maximum amounts of 10 inches are possible in the northern Leeward Islands from Antigua and Barbuda to Anguilla. Executive Director of the Caribbean Disaster Emergency Management Agency, Ronald Jackson, is calling on regional governments to pay more attention to building codes, given the impact hurricanes have been having on the region's housing stock. He says it's a necessity and should not be taken lightly.
Codes need not only to be updated, but to be implemented and, more importantly, enforced. I think there is, we talk about public-private partnership. I think that's an area where we really need to encourage greater public-private partnership between government, planning department, the insurance sector, and the banking sector, so that we can get it right. Because this is way too costly at the individual level, but it's also costly to our societies, and it impacts our efforts at prosperity and sustaining prosperity of our island states. So it's something that certainly we on the CDMA side, when we're not facing these adverse events, we're advocating for on the prevention and risk reduction side as part of our comprehensive disaster management strategy.
And ahead in Newsline Sport, West Indies fighting back after a poor start in the third and final test against England. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Plenty of work for England to do after the break. Milan alongside his skipper, who was closing in on A.B. de Villiers' record of 12 consecutive test matches with a half-century.
Oh, it's worked. The inside edge dragged onto the stumps. The change of angles worked.
Root was joined by Stokes, and although the Durham batsman earned a reprieve on 9, both were soon consolidating the fifth-wicket partnership.
Some changes have been made to ensure the safe flow of traffic at the intersection of Orange Hill Road and Claude Noel Highway. Motorists can no longer merge from the highway onto Orange Hill Road and into the MP gas station. Delineators, the yellow-colored posts, have been installed to prevent this illegal turn.
Initially, when we widened the roadway and we marked it, we expected that the population knew what the markings meant.
Well, boy, has the news lately been difficult to watch. Every other story seems to be about one group of people expressing hatred towards another. Neo-Nazi and white supremacist groups are full of hatred over what they see as an attack on symbols and statues commemorating the Confederacy. Groups like Black Lives Matter and Antifa are full of hatred over what the Nazi and white supremacist groups ideologically represent. But the problem I see, however, is not the views and actions of those extremist groups.
The West Indies are fighting back after being bowled out on the first day of the third and final test against England at Lord's. After they were reeling on 119 for 7 at the tea break, the West Indies were bundled out for 123. Opening batsman Kieran Powell top scored with 39 from 98 balls, while Shai Hope chipped in with 29 from 57 deliveries. Medium pacer Ben Stokes was the bowler who dented West Indies' batting lineup as he captured 4 wickets for 22 runs. James Anderson and Tobias Jones picked up 2 wickets each. In reply, 2 wickets each from captain Jason Holder and fast bowler Kimar Roach left England tottering at stumps at 46 for 4. The West Indies will be hoping to make history in this decisive test, having already broken a 17-year winless streak in England by winning the second test at Headingley last week. The Caribbean men now find themselves on the brink of their first series victory in England in nearly 3 decades. New Zealander Luke Ronchi made his presence felt at a time when Guyana Amazon Warriors needed it most, stroking a high-quality half-century to fire his side to a 5-wicket win over reigning champions Jamaica Talawas in the second Caribbean Premier League playoff Wednesday night. Sent in, Talawas powered their way to 168 for 8 off their 20 overs, with captain Kumar Sangakkara anchoring the innings with an unbeaten 57 off 30 deliveries. Opener Lendl Simmons stroked 34, while Trevon Griffith hit 20, while Afghan leg spinner Rashid Khan snared 3 for 32, and off-spinner Stephen Jacobs 2 for 33. In reply, Amazon Warriors lost to Sohail Tanvir cheaply for 7 with 23 runs on the board when the Pakistani holed out to long-on off-seamer Krishma Santoki in the third over. But Ronchi and Walton then laid the foundation for the win with a rollicking 67-run second-wicket stand. Ronchi was in fine form, striking 5 fours and as many sixes, while Walton belted 5 fours and a pair of sixes. Asad Furuddin chipped in with a pair of fours and sixes as Amazon Warriors rammed home their advantage. On to track and field, an athletics coach is blaming the poor conditions at the London Stadium for Jamaica's dismal performance during the recently concluded World Championships. In this report from TVJ's Jordan Forte, MVP Athletics club coach Stephen Francis also gave his assessment of Olympic champion Elaine Thompson, who missed out on medaling in the 100-meter final.
Jamaica's athletes had their lowest medal haul in 30 years at the London World Championships, taking home only 4 medals. And the MVP head coach was all too happy to get out of the British capital, as not even his Olympic double sprint champion Elaine Thompson was able to climb the podium.
It's difficult. You know, there are a number of factors which made it difficult. You know, a lot of the events, especially in the power events, you could easily predict who was going to win based on where they live or train. You know, it was extremely cold, and you know, it's easy to compete there once if it's a one-off, but when it's there day after day after day, then you know. But I mean, you learn, and you hopefully we won't have another situation like that until they decide to bring it back to London, and then you know we'll see where it goes from here on.
But not even Francis could pinpoint a single factor which caused Thompson to suffer a shock 5th place finish in London.
Well, I mean, there's no specific reason. You know, sometimes you know the athletes don't perform like you expect them to. You know, this year was one of those years, and you know, you have to go, you analyze, you search for reasons, and then you try and correct what you found.
There was consolation for Francis and his charges, however, with the likes of Julian Fort and Ronald Levy producing big personal best efforts during the season.
I wouldn't say it was a good season, but I'd say that at the end, the personal best of 991 was some consolation. So it was a season filled with ups and downs, some injuries here and there too. So, I mean, at the end of the day, I just have to take it for what it is and try to see if I can have a stronger season next year.
I would say it's good because I actually finished a season so far, and even though the championship wasn't as it was expected of me, came out of it and said it's a good experience. So I'm looking forward to next season.
And Coach Francis agrees that the season was not a total failure from an MVP perspective.
There are consolations. I mean, you have a long season with different objectives, and you know, sometimes you may not achieve the major one, but you have others which were on the agenda, and so I think, I mean, it was not a total loss. I mean, there were some bright points, but you know, you just have to say, okay, let us see if we can better this the next time around.
Switching to football, Trinidad and Tobago's bid to reach the 2018 World Cup in Russia ended in disappointment on Tuesday night when they crashed to a 3-0 defeat to Panama. TV6's Sergio Defoe has that story.
Conceding 2 soft goals in the first half of their last match against Honduras, TNT were eager to prevent a repeat away to Panama. Well, the opening goal didn't come as sudden, but the home team got the opener in the 39th minute on the counter-attack. A brilliant run against an exposed defense by Gabriel Torres put Panama ahead 1-0. The visitors created chances in the first half, but they could not capitalize. TNT lost further momentum in the second half Marvin Phillip in for John Michael Williams, betrayed by his own defender, Carlisle Mitchell, with the own goal in the 57th minute. The Panamanians never stopped coming forward, and they were rewarded with a third goal from Abdiel Arroyo in the 83rd minute. That's how the game ended, 3-0 in favor of Panama, who are now third in the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying standings. TNT are virtually out of the race in 6th spot.
That's the sport. We'll be right back. Stay with us.
Distribution provides a platform on cable, terrestrial television, and websites. We cover carnivals and events from across the region. We can bring your event live and alive to the world. For music makers, program producers, businesses, we can expand your reach to in excess of 2 million households daily. Our other services include news updates to enhance your media products, studio space for program and development. We can facilitate the launch of new products and services and training. Contact us and we will help you unleash your creative ability, develop products and services, and provide the medium to watch them grow. Contact Loretta Skeet at cmccaribbean.com or call her 1-246-467-1044 or 1-246-253-3889. Call and book your carnival or event today.
Thanks for joining us for Caribbean Newsline. For more news and sports around the clock, log on to ConneNews.com. We'll be here again tomorrow. But as we go, we leave you with some scenes of some of the damage caused by Hurricane Irma, which has left at least 13 people dead and disrupted the lives of thousands more in the Northern Caribbean. Good night and do stay safe.
Aftermath Hurricane Irma. What the hell, yo?
I can't take it. I can't take it. This is not good. Everything gone down there.
Corta,